Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode here at Last Week in Geek, the video podcast from Manly Battleships. I'm Mr. Panda.
And I'm Roxstar.
We want to start things off by letting you know there are some deep, important stories that we need to talk about tonight here at Last Week in Geek. They are not part of the usual fare that we usually pitch to you on a weekly basis, so those special stories are going to be at the end. You can find the timestamps for those right down there in the description at the start of the summary. So if that's all you're here for, that's fine. Check those out. We want to start things off on a more positive note, incidentally, and congratulate PewDiePie for reaching 100 million subscribers at last. Legit. Finally. Hooray. And right on the tail, incidentally, of getting married. So congratulations. That evening, finally, the bad luck of gamers was broken forever, and PewDiePie became the first gamer to get laid. Kicking things into the stuff we usually talk about, there's a few teaser trailer things that we need to reference to you so that you can go watch them. You know, like Star Wars, you ever hear about it?
I don't know, that trailer was very, member berries from South Park at the beginning there. And then it was like, everybody's dark side. Because think about it, it's like dark side, right? Dark side.
I swear to God, if that turns out to be a stupid dream sequence, I'm going to walk out of the theater. I will walk out of the theater. I will walk out of the theater, Walt Disney. If that is just a dream sequence, I will walk out of the theater.
Star Wars Rise of the Skywalker, so go check that out.
It's not very eco-friendly to knock those trees down, Ray.
Heroes assemble with My Hero Academia Season 4, yet another trailer.
We also got teasers for a new Uzumaki series on Toonami, so we're excited about that. And Crayon Shin-chan's newest movie, which is about, like, rainbow crayons in space and stuff. I actually did not understand what was going on at all.
Well, I don't know. The Uzumaki was a very stylized nightmare fuel. Just so you guys know.
Yeah, that's what that is.
I know, but it was very weird, and there was spirals everywhere, and...
Just wait till you get to the part with the spiders. Updates to a previous story we covered, Kyoto Animation has finally reopened their online store as of August 26th, and they've also announced that a special event that they were going to host called KyoAni and Do, which was going to be on November 3rd and 4th, is going to be turned into a memorial service for the general public. So if you're in Japan around that time and you want to check that out, feel free.
TellTale Games is coming back. Kind of. Sort of.
Not really.
Well, no. At least the name of it and the brand is kind of coming back. Two guys named Jamie Ottley and Brian Waddle have both bought out TellTale. What?
Ottley and Waddle.
You can read it. It's right here.
No, it's just a very unique set of names.
They've both never worked at TellTale, but they do have gaming industry experience. We're hoping it goes in the right direction, except a lot of the devs that used to work for TellTale are coming as freelance, which kind of sucks to go from a permanent position at the place you were working at to freelance. Kind of feels like a demotion there. Don't expect to see anything from The Walking Dead from this TellTale, though, because remember, they were bought by Skybound. It's no longer TellTale property there. It is official. They do have the back catalog, so we'll be seeing a lot of the old stuff coming back, and they're hoping to relicense to make sure that things can get sold again. So, good thing.
So my Steam games won't be useless. Haha. Oh man, I should probably check if my codes still work. I actually have the King's Quest games stuck in a bundle somewhere that I just never cached in.
Oh, you probably can't get access to those now.
Funimation is facing some pushback after the leak of a blooper reel featuring voice acting talents including Chris Sabat, Sonny Strait, Sean Schemmel, and Laura Bailey, engaged in jokes that some people have labeled as homophobic, incestuous, and lewd. Now, a lot of what's been heard on the recording could be written off as bloopers, as, you know, just the off-reel stuff that was said in the recording booth. However, at least part of the recording that was given has some post-editing work on it. So it's like they put some effort into making it whatever it is they wanted to make for their private use, I suppose.
Like a Rule 34 doujinshi live-action reading is what it sounds like.
Before Dragon Ball Z Abridged, there was this. The reason this recording is making such waves in certain areas of fandom is it has potential implications for the ongoing lawsuit between Vic Mignogna, Monica Rial, Ron Toye, and Funimation. And the potential issue, of course, is that it goes to calling into question statements that were made by Funimation in their affidavit during the case. That's honestly the TLDR version, is this might have an effect. We don't know. In connection with that, another voice acting talent named Chuck Huber, who has made waves in the past in the industry for doing pseudo-union activities, has recently come out to add additional fuel to the fire. He has made claims that there was a sort of clique going on at Funimation, headed up by Chris Sabat. They were going around bullying Vic, of course. There were also some additional hints of shenanigans going on, not just an issue of like the company culture, but also allegations that border on the creepy. Like, for example, running his own casting couch and exchanging sexual favors for doing casting.
I mean, that's another one that was like an open rumor where people actually said it at a con as a joke. Other voice actors were saying it as a joke.
In fact, Huber further alleges that he was being pressured to join in a parody video with Chris Sabat and Sonny Strait, targeting Vic, implying that he was gay, that he was a pedophile, and that video, incidentally, that he's talking about has started making the rounds around YouTube and Twitter, though, interestingly, it keeps getting taken down very quickly. It seems like Funimation might need some sacred ointment to fix this problem.
There's a whole new service that you may be able to put your money into if it gets out of Japan, which we're not sure of yet. OOParts, or OOParts, however you want to say it. OOParts is going to be a cloud-based adult visual novel service. AKA, it's going to be cloud-based dating sims.
It's like Steam without the pesky need to download something.
It's more like Google Stadia of dating sims. They are going to have a wide variety of titles that you could play all of them for just one monthly fee, which we have no idea what that's going to be. But it's in closed beta right now, and there's going to be like registrations and stuff to go do that. If you're in Japan, I would try it out, but we have no idea yet if it's coming to the States. Here's hoping for all you dating sim fans.
There's a new One Punch Man themed card game for mobile that's coming out. Now, this is not the first game that's based on One Punch Man that's been released, but it is the first one that is available in America. Unfortunately, you cannot play Saitama. However, you can train up your hero, and you can play Saitama in a minigame and summon him to help you in combat.
We have some casting news from the nerd world. Taika Watiti is going to be in Suicide Squad as an unspecified role right now. We have
the Joker number 7.
He's also going to be in The Mandalorian as the assassin droid IG-88.
I always love IG-88 because the very first time that I saw him, I was just like, oh, okay, like, is he just zoning out? And then I read the description for him on the Kenner, posable toys for him, and they just make him out to be this, badass assassin. I'm like, he didn't even move in the movie. Was there a budget cut? What's going on here? So I guess we are going to see more of him based off of the teaser for The Mandalorian.
Plus Taika Waititi.
Proving that the TSA has never been very good at its job, they have finally decided, yes, you may take your thermal detonator Coke bottles on the flight as long as they're packed in the bag. Reversing their earlier decision to say, no, you can't do that. It's too dangerous. This Coke is too spicy.
Just all security theater to make us feel safe.
In a world where doxing is the most serious issue facing our society, one group, one company is willing to stand up for what's right. And that company is Bang Bros.
In the news of What the Fuck 2019, Bang Bros has actually done something more than Facebook and Twitter when it comes to doxing. They bought out PornWikiLeaks.com, took the physical servers, and burned them with gasoline on video so you could actually go watch that. That's safe for work. And they actually went...
That's safe for work.
That's safe for work. I'm not recommending anything else from Bang Bros. And you can go to their website on Porn WikiLeaks where they actually have a statement about how they feel. There was 1,500 people who were doxxed on there, along with very mean and nasty comments about the performers. They were talking about how they feel this is very detrimental for their porn industry. They know that this is just a drop in the bucket, but it's better than nothing, and they wanted to make a stand for something. And that's all you ever see is their statement when you go to pornwikileaks.com. They're going to make sure that it never comes back. You can't even access anything on the Internet Wayback Machine. So they have very much cleaned house.
And for the first of the two major stories that we have on this week's episode, please be aware that there is a content warning here of potentially disturbing and unsettling information. This past week, the gaming industry faced a massive outpouring of rape, sexual assault, and other misconduct allegations.
This all started with allegations against the very famous, at this point, composer Jeremy Soule, and a bunch of allegations of sexual misconduct, sexual predatory behavior, as well as rape. And from there, it kind of snowballed out to more and more women coming out against more and more men in the gaming industry. These allegations range from men high up in the AAA industry down to the indie industry, and it kind of blew up when Zoe Quinn outed Alec Holokwa, who is a composer for Night in the Woods. She outed him for basically allegations of sexual assault and kidnapping. That very next morning, his sister came out and said he had committed suicide. He was trying to change, trying to be a better person, that she could not excuse his actions because both of them knew that their actions were wrong and predatory, but that he had unfortunately felt like there was nothing left that he could do. At this point, Zoe Quinn's Twitter is deactivated. You can no longer go to her Twitter to access her story. The sister had to private her account because of the backlash from other people going to her account. That's not the only thing Zoe Quinn was involved in. There were allegations against Alex Lifshitz, who was a big partner of her during the Gamergate era. He was accused of taking photos during intercourse with one of the partners without consent, as well as verbally engaging in verbal abuse against women. Quinn did respond to this when her Twitter was active at the time. She stated that she knew that the allegations were true about him, but thought that he had taken the time to change. These are just some of the stories that are out there right now with the MeToo allegations. There are a dozen more. There is no way that we have the amount of time and dedication to be able to cover all of them. If you wish to actually see other people's stories about this, you can go to Twitter and just look it up under hashtag MeToo in video games, and you will see the amount of people that have been outed recently on there.
And for our last story of the evening, we're going to be covering some stuff related to Colossalcon. In addition to the previous warnings we gave you from the last story, there's an additional thing that we need to point out to you. If it wasn't obvious from some of our previous videos, we have an existing business relationship with the company that runs Colossalcon and a lot of other conventions. We're disclaiming that now. It's not a secret. We're not making it a secret. The coverage that we're doing here is as close to objective analysis as we think we can come to, but it is worth noting that we do have relationships with people at that convention, as well as some of the people involved in the disputes. The meat of the story is that cancel culture has really, really come home to roost here in the anime community. It has finally touched on a major convention, Colossalcon. And to think, they managed to completely obscure everything that was going on with Anime Matsuri and pass it on to Colossalcon. It all started with a shirt. Something very simple. They posted up on the official Facebook page that there would be a limited edition work from an artist showing a bunch of frogs, throwing some rocks at some people, saying, "Normies get out, re." Now the reason that this was supposed to be released was due to an incident that happened at Colossalcon East last year, which, by the way, we covered on this show, where a lot of cosplayers faced some exclusionary policies by the hotel convention in the water park area on Sunday afternoon. Basically, after a certain point, they just said, you have to leave. You can't be in here in cosplay or have your props or anything like that. Now, that caused a little bit of an uproar, especially because some people, the Karen types, if you will, actually got on places like Yelp and wrote up scathing reviews of the Kalahari that included mention of, the sexualized cosplay and how they were ruining the event for her children and all that stuff. And the idea was to play off of this old internet meme that showed a picture from a children's book where frogs are chasing kids off with rocks. This drew the attention of several people on the anime portion of Twitter, criticizing for more than one reason. Now, there are some people who just have a problem with the whole re-meme in general, but in addition to that, they focused in on the part where there's only, like, women featured on the front of the t-shirt. Now, you can take that in a couple different ways. Some people were pointing out that it is supposed to be a playoff of the whole, woman on the cell phone thing, calling the cops for no reason. Mm-hmm. In either event, however you feel about the shirt, it was a rapidly decaying situation. The first thing that happened was there was some initial pushback, and the artist got cold feet. And the artist requested that they actually just pull the shirts because he didn't want to be at the center of any major controversy in Twitter, as I'm sure you can completely understand. Colossalcon did do that. But in the wake of that, a number of people on Twitter started highlighting past issues that they had had with the convention and going through this new call of essentially cancel culture. One commentator kicked it off by referencing a panel issue that had come up during Colossalcon Prime, where someone who had put in for a panel that was about diversity issues in cosplay got rejected, got some ambiguous response from the program department when she asked about it, and then that caused a whole public relations snafu because it just did not go well, in my opinion, from either side.
No.
That was then kind of just built into a tableau of criticism along with accusations against specific staff members from the Colossalcon staff. That, in particular, focused on Chris Gary, who was the head of the cosplay department. The key accusation there was that they pulled up a comment that he had made where he called ghosting cosplayers thoughts. The good old-fashioned insult, that hoe over there. If you're not familiar with ghosting, we have covered it on a previous episode, I think on the old version of the podcast.
Yep. And
essentially what you do if you are ghosting is you show up to the convention venue and then you don't buy a badge, but you participate in other things that are connected to the convention. Ghosting is kind of a spectrum of different behaviors, but it's generally understood that the majority focuses in on the term as you show up to the convention area, you do things related to the convention, like taking cosplay photography in the areas around the hotel that are publicly accessible, but you never buy a badge to the con, which is the whole reason people are there. However you feel about that particular issue, it was ultimately determined that Chris was not going to be able to stick around on staff with this kind of fallout. So he was fired or resigned, depends on who you ask. Colossalcon indicated that he was no longer part of staff. However, that was not enough for the people who were in the complaint chain. They then started targeting the convention chair, Donnell. This initially started just directly connected to the criticism about Chris and how Donnell had not been doing enough as a convention chair to rein in the activities of his department heads on social media. This, of course, then played back to the whole panel thing among other issues where Colossalcon's social media was not, or perhaps too responsive to a lot of people when they made complaints. Someone then eventually posted a screen cap of Donnell on someone else's thread, making a comment that a lot of people interpreted as racially insensitive at best. And I'm paraphrasing here, but the comment was something like, do people in Southeast Asia not shower regularly? It was a question. There wasn't a whole lot of broader context to what that thread was about, but of course, with the way it was posted, it didn't look that great as someone who was heading up a convention. And then we got actual leaked postings of private messages between Donnell and another person that dealt with sexual misconduct allegations that someone had done who was on staff at Colossalcon and who had allegedly sexually assaulted someone not at Colossalcon, but actually at, I believe, Otakon in 2016. Now, a lot of what we were shown has the same problem that some of the other screen caps do in that they don't tend to show a lot of the thread before and after. They are arguably edited slightly, I don't know. Basically, the screen cap shows him making a comment that is, at best, dismissive of someone's claim about a sex assault allegation. Now, I know you had some thoughts on this particular issue, right?
The particular comment, I don't feel like repeating because it is a bit vulgar. At best, it is very vulgar. I can understand if there was an actual assault. Even if it was consensual, it's still kind of a little too dismissive and a little too personal. But I understand kind of where he's coming from because at one point he did state that he was very angry and did not want to have this conversation. But the person kept bugging him and bugging him and bugging him to elicit a response it seemed like, from him. At that point, I can kind of see where you might say something that you regret and it's private message, so you want to kind of hope that if you're talking to someone in private, that it stays private and you're able to apologize later about it, especially if you were as angry as it sounds like he was. That doesn't ultimately completely forgive him from that, but it can make the situation a little bit with more context. That being said, that staff member that has the accusation against him hasn't been back to Colossalcon in years. So he's not a staffer there anymore. And at that point, that was the other reason Donnell was a little upset, was what else could he do other than not have the staffer back at Colossalcon as a staffer?
As you can imagine, the PR game rapidly moved out of control. The narrative continued moving towards the entire cancel culture bit. Donnell ultimately stepped down from running the cons, though apparently that wasn't quite enough for a lot of people either. There have been continued calls by a lot of people on Twitter to just get him out of the company entirely, not staff any more conventions. The ownership dynamic and where people stand within the company that actually runs the conventions is not really publicly understood by a lot of people. And it appears that a few people took their anger about the situation and just decided to keep chasing it into the real world, because after all this happened and after he stepped down, apparently Donnell and his family got a visit from ICE, because someone just coincidentally tipped off ICE to go check them out. We don't understand the exact situation going on there as of right now, but we do know that it happened. We do know that he does have family who is of a Hispanic background, and I think specifically from Colombia is what was being said on Twitter. And so this is just awful. I don't have another thing to say about it, honestly. It's kind of disgusts me, to be perfectly honest with you, especially when so many people that are in connection with this thread have very vocal and strong opinions about real world stuff that we don't talk about much here. But it's if you have a set opinion about ICE, and then you still initiate something to basically cause undue stress and what's essentially going to boil down to harassment for his family, what's wrong with you?
Listen, I'm Mexican. I have had unpleasant dealings with ICE. I just can't even, I didn't have words. My heart feels for him because I know what it's like to have your family threatened constantly on a day-to-day basis that they're going to get deported because they're Hispanic. And it's really horrible because a lot of people see me and they don't see Hispanic because I have white skin. But when people see my papers, they know I'm Hispanic. And you get it a lot of the times. It's extremely racist. And if you are going to go cancel someone and you're willing to call ICE on them, you're no better. You're in fact worse. That is a family you are threatening. A family with kids and children, and with the climate that is going on with ICE right now out in California. If you guys don't know about basically the internment camps these people are being placed in, I don't understand. It's absolutely despicable. It's vile.
I mean, obviously we're kind of getting into the realm of personal opinion here, but it's worth taking a step back and thinking about it for a second, because that's just part of the story so far. This is still an ongoing problem. And I'm going to have some additional summary here at the end in another minute, but like I said, there's another chapter that's going on here, so let's cover that real quick. Another person who's connected to the Colossalcon family and has a business relationship with them much the way we do is a guy named Anthony who runs the Tokyo Attack arcade company. So basically they have a bunch of arcade cabinets that they bring in for conventions. It's not just the Colossalcon family, it's for a bunch of other cons up and down the East Coast. Someone on the thread for Colossalcon posted screenshots of what appeared to be him talking to certain people as well as to Donnell. Shady stuff, let's just put it that way.
Alleging that he was the one who actually ran cons, having his own casting couch for panels and merch tables, which...
Yeah, if you perform sexual favor, you can totally get a space in the dealer's room, or a panel, or whatever you want, according to these screenshots. I didn't even really want to cover this because almost immediately, these screenshots were posted via Twitter and I think on Facebook. Despite Tokyo Attack actually operating down at Dragon Con, the response from Anthony at Tokyo Attack was pretty quick. He posted up shares of the screenshots in general and his own refutation statement, and a number of people, not just him, noticed with interest that the screenshots kind of look fake. It's really hard to kind of like quantify in my mind what that feels like, but you look at a conversation and it just doesn't feel natural. So I didn't even really want to include this originally, but unfortunately it's part of the main thread discussion now. It's out there and we do have to address it. So far, in a number of different places where people are still publicly discussing the issues surrounding Colossalcon, it doesn't feel like it's caught on as a mainstream theory that it's a valid claim. There might be additional information that comes out in the future. It's out there. You could read them, but I would definitely strongly recommend you take them with a grain of salt at this point, because we just have no corroborating evidence other than what is presented in these screenshots, and they kind of look not legit. Which brings us to the summary of what we've been talking about today. Now, I guess really there was kind of like 3 stories that touch on this issue about the broader discussion about cancel culture in our community. And this last one, unfortunately really hit home for me personally. And it's just, I have a number of problems with the way things were presented. And don't get me wrong, I think it's worth putting out there. And to be honest with you, historically, Colossalcon has had some PR management issues. I've watched and read the same kind of things you have, and I can definitely say that, yeah, they probably should have had someone else handling social media at different points in time. 9/10 of social media is knowing when not to say something, even if you think you are right. That does not matter. As far as what was actually substantiated with screenshots and coverage, when I looked at that and I was thinking about that T-shirt, I had to just ask, all this for a T-shirt? And I know that it's not as simple as that. I know that there's a lot of intersecting issues. I know there's a lot of bad blood dating from the panel controversy, which I got to tell you, I don't know. You can offer more insight on the panel issue than I can.
I never wanted to speak up about it when it was happening, because honestly I'm the type of person who would rather stay silent, because I really can't take, I have anxiety issues. I can't take being in the middle of a firestorm.
Well, we'd also rather be inclined to take a panelist's side if there's a problem, but this is just one area where we just couldn't get behind it.
As panelists ourselves, if we don't get a panel in and it's a diversity panel, which believe it or not we do have, mostly because if you think about David Bowie, we talk about androgyny, we talk about bisexualism. My chronic illness panel has just started hitting cons. We only got it in at one con and Colossalcon East, which is why especially I felt kind of upset, because it feels like other people do have their voices heard, and we're getting caught up because one panel didn't make it. There's a lot of panels that end up on the cutting room floor for multiple reasons. Maybe it just doesn't fit in that year. Maybe they have a different type of thing that they're going to be covering that year. Maybe they just got lost in the shuffle. Thousands of panels and panelists trying to get in to have their voice heard. Not everyone can have their voice heard at the same time. It's the unfortunate nature of the beast. If you got in at 5 other places, you should be grateful that you got into 5 other places. I'm grateful for the one time my chronic illness got in, and the one other time I'm going to be able to talk about disability and conventions.
We should all be very impressed that a panel got in 5 times with misspellings in the description. That's what I have to say about it.
I mean, yes, that's the other thing, is if you have misspellings in your description, in anything that you write up, because there are sometimes other things you write up, like background descriptions just for the con staff to know. There are other people who have panels out there that don't have misspellings. That's really bad PR for yourself. Know how to market yourself before you blame a convention. We market ourselves all the time.
And guys, there was a discussion that was attached to that whole panel controversy that was more about what types of topics are appropriate for cons versus others. We're not here to tell you what topics are and are not appropriate. I know a lot of talented panelists who aren't part of Manly Battleships, and they do content very similar to what was in that diversity panel. And I can tell you from a lot of experience that I know a lot of programming heads would rather have picked theirs than the one that was submitted to Colossalcon. The entitled attitude of a panelist trying to get a response when the industry standard is there are lots of reasons why your panel might not have been picked. We have, like Otakon has a statement on the front page where it's like, we take about 100 panels and we get over 400 every year. Do the math.
You're definitely not going to ingratiate yourself to other cons by acting like yours is the only one that is the correct one on that topic. And by doing that, you're only showing other cons that you're going to out them.
Keep in mind, although we do panels professionally now, there was a period several years back where we did not. And I can't envision myself ever doing what that particular submitter decided to do and take their problem with the convention to the public sphere. It's not the first time that's happened. It probably won't be the last time it's happened. I remember a similar issue with panel acceptance stuff that was adjudicated in the public sphere back several years ago with Otakon. You'll remember that. But it didn't go over well, and perhaps it's because PR things were handled differently in each scenario. I don't know. Of course, that's not the only issue, but we wanted to put that out there because as far as the Colossalcon thread was concerned, that was what Twitter led with that controversy. So you got the panel controversy, you have a shirt, which, okay, you didn't like the shirt, fine. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't...
A Hego shirt still exists, even though people are controversially against it.
Yeah, I have to tell you the supreme irony of not saying anything about Ahego shirts, which feature not only cropped pornography, but in many cases characters that are not classically appropriate for adult content. Let's put it that way. You have that. You have virgin killer sweaters. You have a whole range of stuff that people wear. And they're not explicitly against the rules. I'm not even suggesting that they should be against the rules, per se. What I'm pointing out is, like, I don't understand what your problem is. Why you have to focus on one particular thing. And it feels like the shirt was the wrong thing to focus on. And I don't know what to say about the things that people said in their private chats or on threads on Facebook. I can tell you this much, apparently no conversation is safe, so you should always keep that in mind when sending messages out into the digital world. Maybe that's a lesson we should have all learned years ago. Of course, that also raises questions about our commitment to previous discussions about digital privacy with things like photos on the cloud. What is privacy anymore? I'm starting to wonder.
I know when it comes to inappropriate, what you would call racist humor, I've done it myself in the private sphere. I'm not even going to hide. I've made jokes against my own race just to lighten the mood in hotel rooms. And I know from now on, I'm not even going to try to say them vocally because it gets to the point where you're wondering who is spying on you to go to show it and cancel you next. And I think that's the end-all problem here is we're not just wanting to cancel now big celebrities who really don't see an effect from cancel culture. You try to cancel Johnny Depp and he ended up as Grindelwald. They don't see the effects of cancel culture as, say, somebody who is just a convention head.
A convention head who put 20 years into building a meaningful space for fans, one that is relatively safe. And although it does have its problems, just like any large convention, we'll note that to date there is no credible accusation of sexual misconduct by the con chairs. Just putting that out there.
It's sad because we're putting this out there. Maybe we're going to be the ones canceled next because, God forbid, we didn't follow the mob and say somebody else should be canceled. And then you don't understand the whole context of our private lives. What you see is we're behind a cell phone right now, filming. But you don't see our private lives. We don't see the private lives of the convention heads either. You don't know what you're affecting when you cancel somebody out of a culture that we built ourselves to feel safe in. And now we no longer feel safe within that same culture. Not because we have skeletons in our closet, but because the mob will do what the mob wants based off of whatever they can find.
I gotta tell you, the single most representative moment of my issue with this entire affair is where you go to Twitter and you find the thread that where all these allegations were kind of aggregated by this particular poster, and the lead tweet has several hundred retweets and like 1,000 likes. At the very bottom of that thread chain is a comment by the originator saying that it's disgusting that people would call ICE on someone and try to affect their family over this. We're trying to cancel them from the convention, not ruin their lives. And that has maybe 20 likes. And I think that encapsulates just how problematic this is becoming, guys. And before this past week, I've never in my life felt ashamed to be a part of the convention community. And I'm just really sorry to say that we have to close out this episode with me telling you that I finally do. I really do. So that's where we're going to end today, guys. We hope that you did stick around for the whole video. We hope that you'll continue to follow us into the future. If you have some personal feelings about any of the stories we felt today, anything we missed, we would love to read up on your own opinion. Leave a comment for us down below. Until then, good night.